President Leona Miles stood on the glass balcony overlooking the sprawling citadel of Unity. From this vantage, the 3 moons of Nova Prime glittered like silent sentinels above the city-sized space station where the galaxy's most powerful leaders had gathered. The summit was meant to mark a new era, an era where humanity would finally be recognized not as upstarts, but as equals among the stars. Her voice rang clear and steady through the grand hall, carried on a wave of hope and defiance. For too long, humanity has been dismissed, ignored as mere survivors clinging to a backwater rock. But today, we stand not as victims, but as architects of a future where peace is not just a dream, but a promise written among the stars. The crowd erupted in polite applause, alien dignitaries exchanging measured glances. Some smiled with respect, others with thinly veiled skepticism. Miles was used to that. She took a breath, her piercing eyes scanning the sea of faces, some hopeful, others wary, all watching closely. We offer not conquest, but cooperation. We seek not dominance, but partnership. Let this summit be the foundation for a galaxy united in justice and prosperity. Suddenly, the massive windows behind her shimmered with a soft pulse, an unnoticed flicker at first. Then, without warning, the entire station lurched violently. A blinding flash of blue-white light filled the hall. Alarm screamed as the crowd was thrown to the floor. The words, "Emergency, emergency," echoed from every speaker. Leona's heart hammered as she was slammed against the balcony rail. The world tilted and spun. Then, pain. A sharp sting behind her temple, a numbness creeping down her left side. The voice in her ear, calm and practiced, whispered urgently, "Madam President, the room is compromised. Evacuate now." She struggled to her feet, eyes wide with shock as the scene around her fragmented. Glass shattered, fragments floating, in zero gravity. Behind the crowd, a small device hissed quietly, a sphere no larger than a fist, glowing faintly with nanite-infused venom. Her vision blurred. Somewhere, a child screamed. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the Assembly's grand emblem, the intertwined branches of countless species, shattered and burning. On Earth, billions watched the live feed in stunned silence. The image froze on the frozen moment of Miles's collapse, her face pale and eyes glassy. A dozen news anchors stammered through breaking news updates, but no one had words strong enough for what had happened. In the halls of the United Human Republic's government, chaos reigned. The Supreme Council convened immediately, their faces grim. Admiral Cale Ward, standing tall despite exhaustion etched in his features, took command. Years of Mars combat had taught him to steady himself when everything else burned. "Leona is gone," he said flatly, voice echoing through the chambers. The summit was a trap. The galaxy has declared war. No one disputed him. Back in the Citadel, amidst the wreckage and smoke, emergency crews moved swiftly. But the damage was more than physical. The virus embedded in the nanite bomb was insidious. It infected every system, from life support to communication, shutting down defenses and killing any biological sample exposed. Attempts to save Miles had failed. Word spread like wildfire. The President of Earth was assassinated by a weapon no one had seen before, an act so bold it shook the very foundations of galactic politics. The Vaec Consortium, the galaxy's richest and most secretive mercantile species, issued a statement condemning the tragic incident, offering condolences but carefully avoiding blame. The Galactic High Council called for calm, promising a full investigation. But on Earth, the silence was deafening. Across cities and settlements, millions poured into virtual memorials, lighting candles, sharing stories, and demanding justice. In an underground command center beneath New Chicago, Ward stared at the cold, flickering hollow of the Citadel. "They think this will break us." He clenched his jaw, eyes burning with a mixture of grief and fury. "They don't know what it means to cross humanity." The Terran Defense Command activated Protocol Revenant, a covert response plan conceived by Miles herself. It was not a plan for peace, but a plan for survival, A guarantee that if Earth was attacked, the attacker would pay with blood and fire. Ward convened his top officers. The briefing room was tense, lit by the harsh glow of tactical screens showing star charts and intelligence feeds. "We don't just strike back," Ward said. "We make the galaxy remember who they killed. We make them fear what humanity can become." A hush fell over the room. Behind the walls, humans armed with everything from plasma rifles to experimental AI war machines prepared for a war they never wanted, but now embraced. In the cold vacuum beyond Earth's orbit, the first black-clad ships of the Hades fleet slipped silently into the shadows, ready to hunt. The galaxy had killed Earth's leader, and humanity's wrath was about to be unleashed. Darkness. For 72 hours, Earth went black. No broadcasts, no transmissions, no communications with any galactic entity. The silence was a scream. Inside, the underground command centers sprawled beneath every major city. Terran Defense Command. TDC operatives worked like shadows, slipping through enemy networks, unraveling secrets and striking unseen. Admiral Cale Ward stood before a massive holomap, glowing with pulsing dots representing star systems. His face was grim, illuminated by the cold blue light. 3 days, he said, voice low. The galaxy thinks we've been silenced. They don't realize this is when we strike. In orbit, the Hades fleet prepared for war. This was no ordinary fleet. Constructed in secret over the past decade, these sleek black ships were stealth incarnate. Their armor shimmered with adaptive nanocoatings, rendering them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Each was equipped with cutting-edge AI co-pilots programmed to think unpredictably, human ingenuity encoded into machine logic. They weren't designed to win peaceful parley. They were designed to hunt, disrupt, and destroy. On board Hades Ascendant, Admiral Ward watched as data streams blinked across the command console. "Targets are confirmed," said Commander Reyes, her sharp eyes reflecting the holographic schematics of a VEC consortium orbital hub. "We have access codes, docking schedules, and a list of personnel on board. We hit fast, clean, and hard." Ward nodded. "No prisoners. This is the beginning." As the Ascendant slipped through the shadows of asteroid belts, human boarding, teams prepared. Clad in exosuits that amplified strength and senses, they rehearsed with silent precision. Among them was Lieutenant Mara Jin, a former mercenary whose fierce loyalty to Earth burned hotter than plasma cannons. She glanced at her squad, voice steady despite the tension. "Remember what we fight for. This isn't just retaliation, it's justice, and it's personal." Back on Earth, the public was restless. News feeds were flooded with rumors and speculation, but official statements were scarce. The blackout left the galaxy guessing if humanity was broken or planning something far worse. In the bustling city of New Chicago, protests erupted outside embassies of galactic powers suspected of involvement. Signs read, "Justice for Leona," and "No more lies." The crowd's fury echoed through the neon-lit streets. Inside a sleek government building, Minister of Communications Elena Torres spoke calmly to a press conference. "We urge patience and trust in our leaders. Our response will be measured and decisive. We will protect Earth and ensure that those responsible are held accountable." But behind her composed exterior, Torres was racing against time. Every passing hour risked more escalation. She knew that once Earth struck, there would be no turning back. Suddenly, the galaxy's quiet shattered. Hades Ascendant dropped out of stealth near the VEC Consortium's orbital hub, its silhouette a shadow against the stars. Within moments, the boarding teams breached the station's outer defenses. The airlocks hissed open and human soldiers poured in like a storm. Reyes led the charge, cutting through corridors with neutron blades, humming deadly blue light. Enemy security forces scrambled, caught off guard by the ruthless precision of the assault. Mara Jin's squad reached the central data core. As she planted explosive charges, her comm crackled. "Admiral, we've got hostiles converging fast, reinforcements inbound." Ward's voice responded instantly. "Hold your position. Extraction will be 2 minutes out." The squad fought back to back, blaster fire echoing in tight halls. Blood mixed with sparks as alarms blared. Back on Earth, the blackout lifted. Broadcasts flickered back online, but the message was chilling. Admiral Ward appeared on every channel across the human colonies and allied systems. Today, humanity sends a clear warning. We are no longer victims. We are a force awakened, unyielding, relentless. We do not seek endless war, but we will not hesitate to defend our own. To those who orchestrated the death of President Miles, prepare to face justice. The broadcast cut abruptly. No one doubted what came next. In the VAG Consortium's capital, panic spread. Their leaders scrambled to assess the damage. A vital hub crippled, secrets stolen, and their most elite security forces slaughtered. Counselor. Drax, a towering Vayak with mottled silver skin, slammed his fist on the table. They've declared war, he growled. This isn't a retaliation, it's annihilation. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, whispers began. The galaxy's power brokers, who once dismissed humanity as reckless and weak, now whispered fearful rumors. Who were these humans, capable of such coordinated strikes? What other secrets did Earth hide? The peaceful facade of the Galactic Assembly cracked, and old alliances wavered. Back on Hades' Ascendant, the boarding teams executed a clean extraction under heavy fire. Explosions tore through the Vayak hub as the human ship slipped away into the darkness. Lieutenant Mara Jin wiped sweat and grime from her brow, voice steady but fierce. This is only the beginning. Admiral Ward gazed at the star map again. He knew this silent war would escalate. The galaxy had ignited a firestorm by killing Earth's leader, and humanity's wrath was now unleashed, not just to survive but to reshape the galaxy itself. The galaxy was waking up to a new reality. The silence that once shrouded Earth had been shattered by the thunderous strikes of the Hades fleet. But with every victory came whispers, not all of them loyal to humanity. Admiral Cale Ward sat in the dim glow of the Hades Ascendant's command center. The aftermath of the VEC Consortium raid had been brutal and decisive, but a new problem gnawed at him: betrayal from within. His mind replayed the encrypted message intercepted hours ago, a warning from an unknown source. Someone close to Earth's inner circle had leaked critical intelligence to the Assembly. On the neutral space station Elysium, the galaxy's unofficial diplomatic hub, human agents worked quietly to unmask the traitor. Agent Sarah Cade, a master of disguise and infiltration, moved like a shadow through crowded corridors and bustling markets. Her reputation for extracting secrets was unmatched, but this mission tested her limits. Her contact awaited her in a dimly lit alcove, a small reptilian species known as the Klin. Renowned smugglers turned informants. You're sure of this? Sarah's voice was low. The Klin's eyes gleamed. The data points to a diplomat, one who has been feeding Assembly officials details about Hades' fleet movements. They call him the Raven. Back on Earth, tensions ran high. Minister Elena Torres convened a private meeting with Ward and top officials. We cannot afford distrust now, Torres said, her voice firm but weary. If there is a leak, it must be stopped, before it unravels everything we fought for. Ward nodded grimly. Agreed. But it's difficult when our allies show faces that mask knives. Meanwhile, aboard the Citadel of Unity, a man sat in the shadows. Ambassador Jarek Valen, a well-respected human diplomat who had championed peace with the Assembly. His polished smile hid a turbulent secret. In a private holocall with a masked figure from the Assembly's intelligence service, Valen handed over a series of encrypted files. They grow stronger, he said quietly. If Earth breaks the Council, the galaxy falls into chaos. We must preserve balance. The masked figure's voice was a whisper. You do well, Valen. Soon the Council will act decisively. Agent Sarah Cade's investigation led her into the labyrinthine underbelly of Elysium. Tracking encrypted comm channels, she uncovered a pattern of secret meetings between Valen and Assembly operatives. In a tense confrontation in a crowded bazaar, Sarah cornered Valen. Why? She demanded. Why betray your own people? Valen's eyes flashed cold. Because survival demands sacrifice. Your president was a threat to the galaxy's order. My loyalty is to humanity's future, not to her. Before she could react, Valen disappeared into the crowd, leaving Sarah alone amid the chaos. Admiral Ward's frustration deepened. Back on the Hades Ascendant, he addressed his officers. "We fight not only enemies in the stars, but enemies in our midst. This is war on two fronts." He paused, voice heavy with resolve. "We will root out the traitor. We will protect our people. And when the time comes, we will deliver a reckoning to those who seek to betray us." As Hades Ascendant prepared for its next mission, Ward studied new intelligence, evidence suggesting the VAC consortium was not the sole architect of the assassination. The council itself had sanctioned the attack, fearing Miles's reforms would dismantle their power. The realization was bitter. The war was larger and darker than they had imagined. Meanwhile, on a distant moon, a secret meeting took place among representatives of several alien factions. The council's corruption was exposed, and voices called for decisive action, not against Earth but against their own. A fragile alliance formed in the shadows, species once enemies agreeing that the Assembly's rot threatened them all. Back. Aboard the Ascendant, the crew braced for the next strike, but the sting of betrayal lingered. Lieutenant Mara Jin approached Ward quietly. "Admiral," she said, "we fight for the future Miles believed in. No traitor can change that." Ward gave a rare, small nod of thanks. The war was no longer only a battle for survival. It was a battle for trust, within humanity, and between the stars. The shadows among allies had been revealed, and the hunt for the Raven had only just begun. The Grand Hall of the Galactic High Council was a cathedral of light and shadow. Towering pillars of shimmering crystal stretched toward a vaulted ceiling, where stars swirled in an eternal cosmic dance. Below, representatives from countless species gathered, their faces solemn, their eyes fixed on the center dais. Admiral Kyle Ward stood beside humanity's chief envoy, Ambassador Rena Solis. Both wore the uniform of the United Human Republics, their expressions carved from stone. They were here to plead humanity's case, to demand justice for President Leona Miles and uncover the truth behind the assassination. The chamber buzzed with murmurs as Ward and Solis prepared to present the evidence gathered by the Hades fleet, recordings, data cores, intercepted messages, and testimonies from reluctant witnesses like the Scalari. Ambassador Solis stepped forward first, her voice clear and resolute. "Members of the Assembly, we bring to you irrefutable proof that President Miles was assassinated by a conspiracy sanctioned within these very halls. The Galactic High Council voted in secret to eliminate her because she threatened your power." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some faces showed shock, others carefully masked disdain. Solis turned to Ward. He nodded and activated the holo display, a swirling 3D projection of the vote logs, encrypted messages, and a video clip of the council's secret session. The chamber fell silent as the projection played. Alien delegates' faces twisted in disbelief and anger. Councillor Drax of the VAC Consortium was the first to rise. His voice was a growl. "This is a fabrication, a ploy to fracture the Assembly. Humanity seeks to destabilize the galaxy with lies." Ambassador Solis met his glare without hesitation. "This is not a claim but evidence. The galaxy's leaders chose assassination over diplomacy. The Assembly's president, a lithe being called Halaran from the Avrix species, raised a slender hand. Enough. We will form an investigative committee. Until then, Earth must stand down and cooperate." Ward's jaw tightened. "You ask for cooperation, while some of you conspire in darkness? How can we trust the Assembly when it votes to protect its killers?" The chamber erupted into heated debate. Voices rose, accusations flew, and old rivalries flared like wildfire. Outside the chamber, a media frenzy exploded across the galaxy. Every star system tuned in to the broadcast. Some hailed humanity's courage. Others branded them as rebels threatening galactic order. Back on Earth, public outrage boiled over. Massive demonstrations erupted in every major city, thousands chanting, "No more lies, justice for Leona." Minister Elena Torres addressed the crowds with a fiery speech. "The Assembly has betrayed us. If they cannot seek truth, then humanity must forge its own path. Amid the turmoil, Ambassador Jarek Valen watched from a hidden chamber aboard the Citadel. His allegiance remained a mystery even to many humans. His hollow communicator beeped. The masked assembly agent spoke quietly. The council grows impatient. Your actions have endangered the fragile peace. Cease this rebellion. Valen's face hardened. Peace maintained by murder is no peace at all. Humanity's destiny will be shaped by its own hands. Back in the council chamber, a decisive vote was called to suspend humanity's membership in the Galactic Assembly. The motion passed by a narrow margin. Ward stared in disbelief. You have just declared war. As the suspension became official, Earth severed all remaining diplomatic ties. Alien embassies were shuttered. Trade routes closed. The galaxy watched as a proud species withdrew into itself. A sleeping giant stirred. In the shadows of the Citadel, whispers of rebellion stirred among other species disillusioned by the Council's duplicity. The Scalari, who had risked extinction to expose the truth, began reaching out to human allies, offering rare and powerful technology, memory transfer implants that could unlock secrets hidden deep in the minds of Council members. On board, the Hades Ascendant, Ward convened his officers. The Assembly's betrayal leaves us no choice. We will fight not for vengeance alone, but for the right to exist. The Ascendant's AI flickered to life. New intelligence has been received. The Council is preparing a fleet to enforce the suspension. Ward's eyes narrowed. Then, we must strike first. In the quiet hours before the storm, Ambassador Solus met Ward in the command bridge. We lost their trust, Kale. But we still have our own. Ward clasped her shoulder. We fight for the truth, and for the future Leona believed in. The stars beyond the viewport glimmered cold and indifferent, but Earth's defenders were ready. The battle for the soul of the galaxy had only begun. The silence before the storm was suffocating. Deep in orbit around Earth, the Hades Ascendant and its sister ships waited in the shadows, cloaked in stealth technology, so advanced even the most sensitive sensors of the Galactic Assembly would miss their presence. Admiral Cale Ward stood on the bridge of the Ascendant, his eyes fixed on the holomap. The approaching Assembly enforcement fleet was detected, massive and heavily armed, but slow and predictable. They believed humanity isolated, weakened, broken. They had underestimated one thing: humanity's wrath. Status report, Ward demanded. Commander Reyes, ever steady, replied, enemy fleet is 10 minutes out. Weapon systems are charged and ready. Boarding teams are prepared for rapid deployment. Ward's voice was calm but fierce. This is more than defense. It's a warning. The first assault began with a sudden, deafening burst of light and sound. Human ships emerged from the asteroid shadows like predators striking at dawn. Plasma cannons roared, tearing through enemy shields. Electronic warfare drones swarmed, scrambling enemy targeting systems. In the chaos, the Ascendant launched boarding pods aimed at the flagship of the Assembly fleet, the Sovereign. Mara Jin led her squad in the black of space, the void around, them alive with deadly energy. Inside the Sovereign, alarms blared as human commandos breached the hull. The corridors, usually gleaming and sterile, became battlegrounds bathed in flickering red lights. Jin moved swiftly, her squad neutralizing, guards with precision and speed. Every step forward was a statement. Humanity was no longer the hunted. They reached the command core, securing vital intelligence and planting charges to cripple the ship's engines. Back on the Ascendant, Ward monitored the battle, eyes flicking between data feeds. Hold fast, he ordered. Every second we delay the enemy fleet is another victory for humanity. Suddenly, the unexpected happened. From deep within the Assembly fleet, a message echoed over all channels. Humanity will pay for this insolence. Stand down or be destroyed. Ward responded, voice cold and unyielding. We do not kneel, we fight. For our leader, for our people, for the right to exist. The message was met with cheers on human vessels, and dread rippled through the Assembly ranks. In the midst of battle, Ambassador Rena Solis received intelligence from Agent Sarah Cade. The Raven has been identified. Sarah's voice crackled. Through encrypted channels. He's aboard the Assembly's secondary command ship, the Sentinel. Solus's expression hardened. We can't let him escape. Target that ship. The Sentinel was a fortress, bristling with defenses and cloaked in a field that thwarted most sensors. Human pilots prepared a daring assault, weaving through missile barrages and laser fire. Meanwhile, aboard the Sentinel, Ambassador Jarek Valen walked the polished halls, his calm demeanor masking a mind racing with calculation. The weight of betrayal pressed on him, but he believed his actions necessary for humanity's survival. Suddenly, alarms screamed. Human boarding teams had breached the outer decks. Valen stood ready as the corridors filled with combatants. The free man who had once been a diplomat now fought for his life and his cause. Back on Hades' Ascendant, the battle reached its climax. Mara Jin's team successfully sabotaged the Sovereign's engines. The massive ship shuddered, its lights flickering as it began to drift, helpless. Human ships withdrew just as the remaining assembly vessels regrouped, battered but still dangerous. Ward watched the enemy retreat, a grim satisfaction settling in his chest. We sent a message, he said. Humanity will not be silenced or destroyed. On Earth, the people erupted in celebration, but Ward knew the war was far from over. The Assembly would retaliate and escalate. In the shadowed chambers of the Council, rage boiled. Councillor Drax slammed his fist. They've ignited a war that will consume us all. But whispers of rebellion among other species grew louder. Many feared the Assembly's grip was slipping. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. Would it spiral into all-out war, or could a new order rise from the ashes? For Admiral Cale Ward and humanity, the battle was just beginning, and with every strike they carved their place among the stars. The galaxy was ablaze with uncertainty. The first strike had shattered the illusion that humanity was weak, but it had also exposed Earth's vulnerability. The Galactic Assembly's wrath was fierce, yet cracks had begun to form within their ranks. Old rivalries, hidden resentments, and a shared fear of the Assembly's corruption created fertile ground for unexpected alliances. Deep in the uncharted nebula expanse, a ragtag fleet gathered, an uneasy coalition of species who had long suffered under the Assembly's heavy hand. Among them were the Scolari, whose quiet courage had already earned humanity's trust, the elusive Velkari assassins, and the mechanically ingenious Merrics. In the flickering light of the command bridge aboard the Celestial Wraith, Scolari, Commander Tyler addressed the gathering. We have a choice, he said, voice calm but resolute. Stand by and watch the Assembly crush Earth, or stand with humanity and fight for a galaxy free from tyranny. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was no small decision. The Assembly's power was vast, and betrayal meant exile or death. Yet the promise of freedom stirred hearts long beaten down. Back on Earth, Admiral Cale Ward received an encrypted transmission. It's from the Nebula Coalition, said Commander Reyes, eyes scanning the message. They're offering support. Ships, weapons, intelligence. Ward allowed himself a rare smile. Tell them we accept. The galaxy has no future without unity. Meanwhile, Ambassador Rena Solis met secretly with representatives of the Coalition on a remote station orbiting a dying star. The negotiations were tense, filled with cautious diplomacy and the unspoken weight of shared history. Velkari emissary, Kaleth with eyes like molten gold spoke plainly. We do not forget those the Assembly betrayed. Humanity's fight is ours. Solis nodded. Together we are stronger, but the Assembly will not yield easily. They will strike where we are weakest. As the Coalition's fleet grew, so did the Assembly's fury. Councillor Drax convened an emergency session. His voice thundered through the chamber. These traitors must be crushed. We cannot allow rebellion to spread. Plans were drawn to deploy the Judicator, a massive warship equipped with devastating planetary weapons. On board the Judicator, Captain Loran Dre prepared for deployment. A veteran of countless conflicts, Dre believed in the Assembly's mission, but even he felt unease at the scale of destruction promised. In orbit around Earth, Ward and his commanders strategized. The Judicator is a threat unlike any we've faced. Reyes said. We can't confront it head-on. Mara Jin leaned forward. We take the fight to the Council's homeworld, cut off their command and disrupt their control. Ward considered. A bold move, risky, but necessary. While planning, Agent Sarah Cade reported a breakthrough. The Raven, Jarek Valen, has been captured by Assembly loyalists but is alive. They're transporting him to the homeworld for interrogation. Ward's eyes narrowed. We need him alive, and soon. The Coalition fleet, bolstered by human and alien ships, slipped through the shadows toward the Assembly's core systems. Their path was treacherous, fraught with patrols and hidden traps. On board the Celestial Wraith, Commander Tyler addressed the crew. This mission will decide the fate of the galaxy. Stand firm. Fight for freedom. Meanwhile, in the bowels of the Assembly's prison station, Valen awaited interrogation. Though beaten and weary, his resolve remained unbroken. A cold voice echoed in the chamber. You betrayed your species. Why? Valen's gaze was steady. Because truth is the greatest threat to tyranny. As the Coalition fleet approached the Assembly homeworld, battle erupted. The skies ignited with fire and energy as ships clashed. The Judicator unleashed its fury, devastating Coalition cruisers, but the united forces pressed on with determination. In the midst of the chaos, Mara Jin led a daring ground assault to rescue Valen and strike at the heart of the Council's power. Through smoke and ruin, her team fought relentless enemies driven by the memory of Leona Miles and the hope for a new dawn. Back on the Hades Ascendant, Admiral Ward coordinated the battle, his voice steady through the storm. Hold the line. Victory is within reach. The battle raged, but amidst the fire, a new hope blossomed. A galaxy united not by fear or oppression, but by the courage to fight for a better future. The Assembly homeworld, known as Varelia Prime, was a gleaming jewel of advanced technology and ancient grandeur, a symbol of power that had long cast its shadow across the stars. But today, its shining towers were scarred by fire and smoke, the signs of war writ large across its surface. Amid the chaos, Mara Jin and her team moved swiftly through the ruined corridors of the Central Command Complex. The ground assault was perilous. Assembly loyalists were fierce and numerous, but the stakes left no room for hesitation. Her squad's mission was clear. Infiltrate the prison facility, rescue Ambassador Jarek Valen, and disrupt the Council's control systems. Jin's comms crackled. Approaching detention level, whispered Lieutenant Reyes. The squad's boots echoed softly in the sterile halls. They reached the heavily guarded entrance to the holding cells. Breach in 3, Jin signaled. With practiced precision, they neutralized the guards and hacked the security doors. Inside, Valen lay weak but conscious, his eyes lighting up. When he saw them, time to go, Jin urged. Back on the command bridge of the Hades Ascendant, Admiral Ward monitored the battle. The Coalition fleet was holding the line against overwhelming odds, but the Judicator loomed like a specter, threatening to annihilate them. Suddenly, an alert flashed. Mara's team had breached the prison. Ward's grip tightened. Keep the pressure on the fleet. Support ground teams where you can. On Varelia Prime's surface, chaos was mounting. Rebel cells inside the city, inspired by the Coalition's assault, rose up against the Assembly's forces. Firestorms erupted in the streets as citizens who had long suffered under the Council's rule joined the fight. Inside the command complex, Mara's squad fought their way to the central control hub. Valen, despite his injuries, took the lead in hacking the system. We need to cripple their communication, he said, fingers dancing across the terminal. Suddenly, reinforcements arrived. Assembly elite troops surged into the chamber. The squad was pinned down, forced into a desperate stand. Back on the Ascendant, Ward received distress signals. Jin's team is in trouble, reported Reyes. They're outnumbered. Ward's voice was cold and decisive. Prepare a rapid extraction. We're not leaving anyone behind. With fierce determination, Mara and her team held their ground, buying precious time for Valen's sabotage. As the communication arrays went dark, confusion rippled through the assembly fleet and planetary defenses. In the void above, Admiral Ward seized the moment. "Deploy the ion strike fleet," he commanded. Human and coalition ships surged forward, unleashing a coordinated attack against the Judicator and remaining assembly warships. The battle turned brutal as laser fire lanced through space. On the surface, rebel forces capitalized on the confusion, pushing assembly troops back and reclaiming key strategic points. Mara's squad fought with relentless courage, a spark of hope in the darkness. Just as extraction ships approached, a sudden explosion rocked the command complex. Jin was thrown against the wall, dazed but alive. Valen, weakened but resolute, smiled. "The Council's grip is broken," he said softly. They escaped just as the complex began to collapse, boarding the waiting ships amid a hail of gunfire. Back, on the Ascendant, the fleet cheered as news of the successful mission arrived. Ward allowed himself a rare moment of relief. "We've struck at the heart of tyranny," he said. "But the war isn't over. The Assembly will regroup." In the Council chambers, outrage and despair clashed with fear. Councillor Drax slammed his fist. "They have stolen our command. We must respond with overwhelming force." But others whispered, of rebellion, of change. The galaxy was no longer the same. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Streets filled with joy, but leaders knew the fight ahead was still long and hard. Ambassador Solus addressed the crowd. "We have taken the first step. Together, we will forge a new galaxy, one built on truth, justice, and freedom." Yet, in the shadows, a new threat stirred, a secret faction within the Assembly, more dangerous than any before. The heart of rebellion had been struck, but the pulse of war beat stronger than ever. The dawn over Varelia Prime was stained with ash and fire, but it was a dawn nonetheless, a symbol of change in a galaxy long shackled by fear and corruption. The war was far from over, yet the tides had turned. Admiral Cale Ward stood on the observation deck of the Hades Ascendant, gazing at the battered assembly homeworld below. The scars of battle were visible even from orbit, but the spirit of rebellion burned brighter than any flame. Beside him, Ambassador Rena Solus clenched her fists. "We've weakened the Assembly's grip, but there's still so much work to do. The Council won't go quietly." Ward nodded. "They'll try to rebuild their power, but the galaxy has tasted freedom. That can't be undone." Meanwhile, deep within the hidden halls of the Council's secret chamber, a faction more sinister than anyone had imagined convened. Known as the Obsidian Circle, they had orchestrated much of the Assembly's dark dealings from the shadows. Councillor Drax, bruised but unbroken, addressed the group. "We have lost control, but not the war. We will strike at the root, Earth itself." A dark plan was unveiled. A covert assault on Earth's core systems, aimed at crippling its infrastructure and breaking humanity's will. Back on Earth, the people celebrated their victory with cautious hope. President Leona Miles's vision was alive in every street, every heart, a future where humanity stood tall among the stars, free from oppression. But Admiral Ward and his commanders knew the real battle was yet to come. Suddenly, alarms blared. Aboard the Ascendant, a fleet of cloaked assembly warships had emerged from a nearby nebula, their approach swift and deadly. "Ambush," Ward growled. "Battle stations." The Ascendant and Coalition ships sprang into action, lasers lighting. The void. This time, the Assembly's attack was merciless and precise. In the thick of the battle, Mara Jin led a squadron of fighters, weaving through enemy fire with deadly skill. "Focus on the cloaking generators," she ordered. "We need to reveal them." As their weapons struck true, enemy ships flickered into visibility, revealing the true scale of the assault. On the Ascendant, Ward's voice was steady despite the chaos. "Hold the line. Protect Earth at all costs." Meanwhile, Ambassador Solus coordinated with coalition allies. "We must counterattack and cut off their retreat," she said, eyes sharp. "If we let them regroup, all is lost." The battle raged for hours, each side trading blows in a deadly dance. The Ascendant suffered damage but refused to yield. Human pilots pushed beyond limits, their resolve unbreakable. At a critical moment, the Obsidian Circle's secret weapon emerged, a massive dreadnought capable of unleashing devastating energy waves, threatening to disable the entire Coalition fleet. Ward gritted his teeth. We need a strike team on that ship. Mara, this one's yours. Jin's squadron broke through enemy lines, dodging firestorms and debris. Boarding pods launched with precision. Inside the dreadnought, they faced fierce resistance, elite guards, and automated defenses. Valen, healed but wary, joined the boarding team. His knowledge of assembly systems was invaluable. Together they fought through the labyrinthine corridors toward the dreadnought's core reactor. With seconds to spare, Valen planted explosives, setting a timed detonation. We blow this ship to hell, he said grimly. As the team escaped, the dreadnought erupted in a spectacular explosion, rocking the battlefield and tipping the scales. The assembly fleet faltered, retreating into the nebula's shadows. Back on the Ascendant, Ward allowed himself a breath. We won this battle, he said softly. But the war for the galaxies still continues. On Earth, a new day dawned, not free from conflict but filled with hope. Ambassador Solus addressed a united assembly of coalition leaders. Together, we will rebuild. Together, we will ensure that no leader, no people, will ever fall to tyranny again. And as stars shimmered in the endless night, humanity and its allies stood ready. The galaxy was vast, filled with peril and promise alike. But for the first time in a long time, it belonged to those who dared to fight for freedom. The end.